Hello, everybody. It's Friday, and that means it's Exhuming the X-Files here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, joined once again by my friend Jeremy.
Hey, everybody.
And if you follow along with us from week to week, you know that we are working our way through one of our favorite television shows of all time. We were big fans of the X-Files as kids. We're revisiting it as almost middle-aged adults, I guess. Would we be considered middle-aged? I don't know, maybe. So, hit that like and subscribe if you want to follow along week to week every Friday here on Outpost Unknown. We've gotten a bunch of subscribers from the show, so thank you to all the new listeners who are popping on and leaving comments. We do appreciate it. Now, this week, we are talking Irresistible. This is episode 13 of season 2. This is the 37th episode of The X-Files. And Jeremy, I just have to ask you, is your hair normal or dry?
It's chemically treated and I need special conditioners. It was clearly the right answer every time it was asked.
So this is definitely, I have some thoughts on this episode when we get to that portion of the show, but this was very Tooms-esque to me. This whole thing, I just kept getting Tooms vibes, but we'll dive into it. Take us through Irresistible, directed by David Nutter and written by Chris Carter. So this is a Chris Carter joint.
Really? All right. So it begins with a girl at a funeral talking about her friend who had just passed on. There's an embarrassing amount of crimson, so it can only be a Catholic funeral, but it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Then they have it at the very end of the funeral. The creepy kid from American Beauty shows up, only he's an adult now and he's standing in the back. You remember the video camera kid?
Yeah.
Yep, that was him. And he's
not
really.
Oh, okay. I was like,
really.
I was like, really?
But as a character in my head canon, that was definitely him as an adult.
Gotcha. Okay.
And he has this face like he is sniffing around looking for some strange, if you know what I mean. Like, so everybody leaves and he goes up to the casket and just kind of white knuckles the edge of it, like.
It's a disturbing intro. Yeah, it's unsettling.
And then so it immediately cuts to the girl apparently being in a coffin in the basement, or some other dude is in the basement of this funeral home, but it's not clear.
It's like I assumed it was like the funeral home director and then like an assistant. Like that guy was his assistant or something like that, or maybe he's a mortician.
But as far as the audience goes, it's just a dude walking in the dark. You think it's the same guy, and he's going over to this cabinet full of, funeral body stuff, and he turns around because he hears something. He's like, "Who's that? What's going on?" And then fucking Daredevil stands up from behind one of the casket. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know Daredevil was in this episode. And then he becomes a guy in a suit, this creepy guy that was upstairs. And he shines a flashlight on him, realizes he has a pair of shears. He goes over to the coffin of this girl that just died and got wheeled down to the basement. And she's looking like a 3-year-old's Barbie doll when the 3-year-old gets to the scissors, there's just hair everywhere.
Yeah.
The creepy guy has this smile on his face, and he just gets fired and like gently escorted outside instead of,
They make you think he's gonna like stab the dude with the scissors or something, but no, he's just very calm. He's just cutting off this dead little girl's hair because that's his kink.
And then he walks out to one of the weirdest camera sweeps into the title screen that I've ever seen. The camera just stays dead center of his nose, and I guess they just told him to just walk straight into the camera.
Yeah,
face first.
There was that cool shot though, when there's a bunch of quick shots of this where he's in full demon garb and makeup and whatnot. When he first steps up from behind that coffin, I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And then you get that really just quick shot in the shadows of him like all demoned out. I thought that looked pretty cool.
I thought but I did not remember the episode, and I swear to God, it was the comic book character Daredevil for just a second. Like, God, it's
yeah, it's amazing you say that because I watched this episode. I'm like, I don't remember a thing about this episode.
No,
I was
nothing.
like, I know I had to have seen it before, but I have no recollection of anything that happened in this episode. So it's weird that we had the exact same experience. And the guy, I love when he sees the guy that has cut her hair. He's like, "You freak!" Like exclamation point loud. You're fired.
I wish he was more aggressive with it though, or would have provoked him, or called the cops, or done anything necessary to, say that there was a crime instead of just like, just get away from me and my business. I don't want any of this. Oh God, all right. So we cut to the title screen. Then when we get back, it's this guy. And I wrote later on the local FBI agent, because apparently they only have one assigned to the entire Minneapolis metro.
Yeah, which
He
is not
is
accurate, by the way.
he is such a fucking goof in this episode. I don't know what he was going for, but chemistry with Fox and Fox and Scully was not what he. This was almost a Columbo-esque kind of goofball investigator guy, and he's like, or he
Special
calls
Agent
up,
Boggs.
and he calls up Mulder and Scully because, well, no, I don't even think he called up them directly. He reached out to MUFON, the
Mm-hmm.
the UFO investigating organization, because of a grave robbery. And if you look at like the hole in the ground, it was clearly dug by a backhoe. And I thought it was hilarious. At first, I saw it, it's like, okay, those are super straight edges. The aliens don't have a fucking backhoe. And then Mulder just like looks down in the hole, looks up at him, is like, yeah, some dude dug that with a backhoe. If you just follow the tracks, like 70 yards over there, you're gonna find it parked, and you just take your investigation from there. And they walk away.
Well, yeah, because it's funny because he mentions that, oh, you guys have that reputation. You're the alien special agents, and he's going through. He's like, oh, all of the fingernails and all of this horrible stuff, and then Mulder's like, nah, bro, there's no alien stuff here. This is just a freaky dude, freaky dude from the prologue.
Just collecting stuff. But you find out shortly afterwards that Mulder always knew that this wasn't an X-File case. Really, he wanted to go up to Minneapolis to watch the Vikings play
the Redskins.
The Redskins. That's it.
Washington Redskins back then. You can't say that now, but yeah, it was the Washington Redskins back then.
And
now it's the Commanders.
So,
was he because like Scully was completely shocked by this. Scully looks like she has no interest in football at all, but he has 2 tickets. Was he like trying to take her on a date to this football game? Just, hey, I flew you halfway across the country and I'm going to take you this 40-yard line of this Vikings Redskins playoff game or whatever.
A date? I don't think so. He just grabbed Scully and like left because they're partners, and he was making her an accessory to some sort of fraud.
I love the look on her face when he's like 2 tickets to this NFL game, and she just has this great look that was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, wasting my time.
What was it? Oh, I did from the previous scene. Mulder has this line about salt and pepper. He was talking about what it takes as a human being to collect trophies from dead bodies. He was talking about how really sick people are. But then he has this offhand comment as he's getting into the car. But people collect salt and pepper shakers, and I don't understand those people either. So the way he had said it was almost as he was making it just as common for people to collect trophies from dead bodies as it was weirdos collect salt and pepper shakers. That was really funny.
I mean, this is Chris Carter dialogue here, so nothing surprises me.
Then next scene, you get the creepy guy is at a job placement facility with this lady.
Oh God!
And
this woman.
the lady like has a look on her face like she completely understands and is weirded out that this guy is a creep. But then she starts leaning in and like, hey, I know this. I know you're
flirty.
Yeah, and starts winking at him. So it's like, you clearly know. And are somewhat horrified that this guy is a fucking weirdo, but you like that crazy dick.
Well, Mulder calls him an escalating fetish.
Yeah.
The guy's name is Donnie Faster, which I don't. For whatever reason, when I was writing my notes, I kept writing Fister, Donnie Fister instead of Donnie Faster. Don't know why.
It was an awesome name, but weird. The first time he
Yeah.
said it, I thought it was just an alias. Like, no way they named this guy Donnie Faster until they said it later in the episode. Like, all right,
Yeah,
going with
and
that.
Scully, there's a separate storyline kind of with Scully going on here that we'll go into, but there is a moment right around here. I don't know if it was before the scene or after, where she's looking through the crime scene photos, and she like hallucinates her dead body in one of the crime scene photos. So
Mhm.
Scully is like kind of what's the word I'm looking for? She's kind of like whacked out this episode.
Shaken,
Yeah,
shook,
she's she's coming back from her alien abduction and all of that stuff, and you can tell she's not quite right yet.
and what's weird is she hides it from Mulder. She basically
Yeah,
spends the rest of the episode, and spoilers, she spends the rest of the episode becoming more and more distant from the case because it's scaring the shit out of her and she just can't handle it. She doesn't want to talk to Mulder about it, but she talks to somebody about it and
yeah,
kind of gets it figured out. But that was something I had noticed not only now but the next two episodes was
yeah.
she is way out of character for Scully as far as this weak damsel in distress thing going
Yeah,
on. Very,
because
very
later, because I
strange.
actually wrote this down. She taught. This is jumping ahead, but she does speak to a therapist later on in this episode, and the therapist asks her something, or the therapist says, do you trust your partner?" And she's like, "I trust him with my life." And she says that she doesn't want to bother him and doesn't want him to feel like he has to protect her. So she's kind of like trying to put on this brave, like I'm tough, like I don't need any help. But human beings, every once in a while, you gotta ask for help, and
Sure.
that eventually comes around at the end of the episode. But yeah, she throughout this thing, she doesn't want to tell Mulder anything because I think she just doesn't want him to be worried about her. I guess she thinks she can handle it herself.
All right. So the next scene, Creepo picks up the hottest hooker in Minneapolis, and I'm telling you, if the streetwalkers actually look like the girls in this scene, I'm going. What a fantastic place! But there's this blonde hooker. He gets her in the car and goes back to his apartment
For some
where
reason, I thought of you when I was watching this scene because I'm like,
thanks.
what is Jeremy? What is his notes going to be on this scene?
Word for word, picks up the hottest hooker in Minneapolis. So they go back to his place. It's like cold inside of the apartment, but he's an escalating fetishist. He's not just digging up bodies anymore. Like he's moving to that next level. All in the same weekend that this whole thing started. There was another thing that was weird about the episode. That goofball FBI agent were like, we just don't have the manpower to do anything about this until at least Tuesday. It's like
Yeah,
Friday or Thursday of the previous week. Like we can't really move on this. And Mulder's like, no, this guy's gonna start just fucking murdering people, and he does almost immediately.
yeah. But Mulder's still very hyper focused on that football game. Like earlier on, the
Yeah,
agent's trying to tell him something, and he's just
he's just
watching the football
watching.
game. He's like, "Sorry, he didn't let you get to go to the game, but more bodies have been dug up or whatever." Mulder doesn't care.
That that also seemed like a thin reason to just emergency bring him back in for another body. Like that, every bit of evidence they could have gleaned from that would have been taken from crime scene photos and reports. Like he
Yeah.
could have spent 4 hours fucking watching a football game. He just didn't. So anyway, he gets her back to the apartment. It's super duper cold. He makes excuses about it. He runs her a cold bath because he wants her to bathe, apparently, and then starts in on the fucking hair care product.
Do
Is
you
your hair
shampoo
treated?
your
Yeah.
hair?
Are, are you a natural blonde? And she's like, why? What? And he's like, well, I just want you to make sure I have the right product for you in this bathtub.
I'll pay extra. I mean, he's
And
gonna pay
then
her extra.
And then the phone starts ringing. It's like this is like nighttime Minneapolis. He's gone out late enough to pick up a streetwalker. So this is anywhere between what would you say, 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., something like that. But his phone starts ringing because the weird ass lady from the agency that hires people wanted to call her or call him super duper excited to tell him that he had the job, which further is evidence that she was, calling him that late at night and she wanted to celebrate. But anyway, the hooker starts complaining that the bath water's cold. Why is it cold? She's standing there in a towel. She walks into his bedroom, and he has all of these funeral bouquet arrangements around the outside of his bed. And he stands up, and he's just so. And you're so right. He's so Tooms fucking weird. Just quiet, weird look on his face. Just real creepy.
He talks very slowly in almost like a monotone. Like he's disarming people with how nice he's coming across. But then he's clearly a weirdo. It's his face. He looks like a weirdo. No offense to the actor. He looks weird.
They picked the right guy for the job. That's for
true.
And so he gets her. They find her body on the street, and then all of a sudden, it's like Saturday night after this Thursday. They have no manpower to do this, but there's like 40 fucking cops and paramedics all in this one street corner that has a dead hooker laying in it.
There's probably plenty of local PD. There's just no FBI agents.
But he was such a goof. Like the things that he was saying and how lazy he kind of came across because he was definitely like that government worker guy.
Yeah.
The guy that always makes it a point to shit while on the clock. Like just that guy.
Is it this scene here where Donnie pulls the hair out of the bathroom trash?
Or no, it's the next one.
Okay. So I have that in my notes.
He's at work the next day because he has the job and it's as a delivery man. And he knocks on the door. This lady answers the door, says, well, I got like 4 younger daughters or something like that. And he's somewhat normal in this scene, talking wise. Like he's still clearly awkward, but he's a little bit more upbeat so he doesn't come across as a complete creep while this mom is talking to him. He sees pictures of the kids. Like one of the daughters comes in and he says, can I wash up my hands? So he goes in the bathroom. And I don't know how many of you audience members have ever lived with a woman, but that wastebasket next to the toilet, the more girls you have in your house, the more full of various napkins and toilet papers and sundries. Like they're just there until they eventually disappear one day. And then within a few days, it's full again. He looks in that and has that same look on his face that he had at the funeral. Like,
I wrote barf in capital letters right here. Now I have a thing, like I can't stand like wet hair. If I go into the shower or whatever and someone's been in there before and there's wet hair on the wall or on the floor, it grosses me out. This wasn't even wet, but he's just digging through there and he pulls out like a clump of hair and I'm just like, it made me want to gag. I'm like,
I thought it was going to be worse. I thought he was going to put one of those tissues in his mouth.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, God. Because he wanted to go in. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And so, oh, God. Anyway, thankfully that scene ended where he left the house and he doesn't revisit those people for the rest of the episode. And I'm so glad because, but he goes to school. He's going to night school because he wants to be a comparative religionist, or I can't remember what the stupid title he gave.
Comparative religions. Like, okay, Donnie. Okay.
And he sees this girl and I'm going to use this throughout the next few episodes, I feel. But Wish.com Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica is in his class with him, and he just starts ignoring the class and just starts staring at this chick.
Her hair.
Yeah, her neckline, her hair, her ear, the whole shebang. And she goes out to his car afterwards, and he's like, what assignment do we have again? And she is immediately creeped out by him, but as soon as he asks that, like, she's immediately relieved. But then he places his hand, like, traps her kind of with his hand on her car door, and she doesn't even hesitate. She just fucking blasts this dude in the nuts, and then runs off yelling help.
Good for
And
her.
yeah, I mean, no, it was enough to incapacitate him, and she got away. There was no even chase scene. It was just blast him in the nards and move on. And then we get to this scene where the cops had called the FBI. The FBI brought everybody or all three of them into because they figured they got the guy. Some dude was injured by some chick, is all that they said. It's like, all right, they're gonna go into the police station and actually because they busted this guy. It was some other guy. He was trying to get handsy with a hooker or something. Hooker took out a knife and just slashed his face, which
Those
is great.
hot and dangerous hookers in
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Oh man, they don't fuck. Well, they don't fuck around. They even mentioned it like the reason the girl had a knife is because this other hooker got killed, and they don't. All of them were armed essentially. So you had this small army of Minneapolis hookers somewhere, but find out that it's not the right guy. That the dude, the killer in this instance, actually the what is it? The escalating fetishist did get arrested and was in a cell right across the way while this guy was being interrogated, which seemed really, really unprofessional. You think it would bring him to a room or something instead of just interrogating him in the public cell block in front of other people, but you know, we do things. And the killer or the escalating fetishist gets just starts drinking in Scully. The whole
Beautiful red
time
hair.
that Scully is gonna get caught eventually, and that's exactly what happens. Scully goes
A la
back to DC.
Tooms. Very
She goes.
Tooms-esque.
She needs to get away from the case. She decides that I can better serve this case by just in or looking at the evidence, looking at the pictures, drawing up reports. She ended up doing like this Doogie Howser narration for the whole episode over the top of what drives this guy, what's been bothering her about it.
I made a note of that. That seems to be a common motif from Chris Carter. He always has Scully sitting at a computer, like doing voiceover narration as she's typing or looking at whatever to like info dump on the audience. And I can't stand that. I'd rather the characters just kind of figure it out rather than I'm just at the computer sort of typing and, here are my thoughts. It happens too much in this show.
It I agree with you, but I liked it out of this episode because we needed to. I don't know. It gave Scully a voice in it that she didn't otherwise really have,
Yeah,
especially when she was experiencing the weakness.
yeah. Her storyline throughout this is her trying to deal with this trauma or inability to cope with the stuff that she's seeing in this case based on what had happened to her before. Like there's you see little flashes of this throughout. Like she wakes up, she has like this dream or whatever, and that she's doing an autopsy, but she's the one on the autopsy table or whatnot. So I can understand it. I guess I just wish they would have done. I mean, she could have had that whole conversation with the therapist, and we could have had a much like rather her sitting in front of a computer just typing. We could have had multiple sequences with this therapist showing that Scully is really trying to like work through this. It was just it's Chris Carter's choice. I just personally think it could have been
Can't
handled a little
fucking
better.
stand it. So she goes back to Minneapolis. She's gonna stay there. She somehow gets convinced to go back, and it was really, really weird because somebody tried to get a hold of her to tell her some piece of evidence, and when she followed up with the FBI or Mulder and this FBI guy out in Minneapolis, did one of you guys call me? They're like, no, it didn't trigger anything in her where she was being set up. She just like, okay, well, I guess I'll
Yeah.
just ignore this and fly back.
Well, I think they're just trying to convey that her head is just not in the game at all with
Sure.
this case, and so she's not thinking about the things she normally would think about and see. But she found a print.
Did. And then they track the guy's actual house down, bust into his apartment, find his weirdo bedroom setup, find fingers stored in the Brussels sprouts in the freezer for why was it in the Brussels sprouts? Ew.
Yeah. They
And
mention the FBI agent mentions Jeffrey Dahmer in this episode without name dropping Jeffrey Dahmer, because he talks about the weirdos that are doing this kind of stuff, and he mentions that guy in Milwaukee. No one would have ever suspected that he was doing that. That's where Jeffrey Dahmer was.
huh,
So
I
I think
did.
that's a nod to Jeffrey Dahmer putting body parts in food and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Scully makes it back. She gets in a rental car, immediately gets run off the road in a rural part of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and gets kidnapped. And they go back to Creepo's dead mom's
My note
house
here
for
is
sale.
gotta sniff that hair!
Ugh.
Exclamation point.
Yeah, he was real thrilled about that. So he sets up the whole murder scene at this rental, or not, sorry, for sale ex mom house. Sets up the little tray or the tray with the bath soaps, and immediately is like, "Do you have dry hair?" And she ain't even playing. Like, what? And then smacks him real hard, blasts him into the tub, and then runs out. Goes back downstairs. And what was he saying? What was he calling her when he was walking around in the house?
Oh,
Creepy.
oh,
Like,
was it
was it
like girly
pretty
girl
girl?
or something? I
Girly
think it was
girl.
like
Yeah.
girly girl.
There's
Girly
nowhere you can
girl.
hide in this house, girly girl. This is I grew up here, girly girl.
I mean,
Sh-
Scully is fighting back. That's the cool thing. Like she didn't just sit there and then Mulder had to come save her and do everything against the guy. She was fighting back as best she could.
Sorta. I mean, she's always up till this episode, she's always been the gal that draws the gun first. She fired on a couple of people. Like, they get into a tussle. She loses her gun at the very end. Like, she doesn't or she has just a split second to shoot him, and it doesn't work out to where she ends up getting pinned down again by him. And all of a sudden, the FBI and the cops rush in the front door right at the last second to save her.
Right, but she puts up a fight before then. So my point is, like, when he's got her initially in the bathroom, whatever, and she's all gagged and stuff, it's not like she couldn't do anything against this guy, and then like the last 10 minutes is just Mulder, in fighting this guy down.
Yeah.
She actually fights back, which I did appreciate. And yeah, but you get those shots of the demon again, like when he's on top
Oh
of her or
yeah.
whatever, and you see that it's just like quick, like 1 second shots of this guy in full demon mode or whatever. And one of the questions of this episode is, who is Donnie Faster? Like, is he a demon? Is he a shapeshifter? Like, because they don't really explain throughout this episode as to what exactly is his deal. Is he just is this just something Scully is hallucinating because of her own trauma? But that can't be true because the funeral director saw him as kind of like a demon as well, but he's not really doing demony type things. So it's like, yeah, he's digging up graves and escalating stuff, but it doesn't feel demonish sort of thing. So, what did you feel like Donnie Faster was supposed to be here? Do you think he's just a dude, or do you think he's an actual demon?
I never understood why or what was with the whole demon thing. Outside of, and again, we'll revisit this on additional episodes. We see stuff in these episodes that in my opinion, doesn't make any sense, other than they built a prosthetic or something for a different episode that didn't get included, and somebody bitched enough in order to get it in an episode, because it didn't. There was a scene like in that closet at the end where he becomes not only the demon, but he shapeshifts into a bunch of completely
Yeah,
unrecognizable people. Like, if they
that's
had
right.
shifted into a Jeffrey Dahmer, a Ted Bundy, like actual used those faces in that moment, that would have made a whole lot of more sense to what they were doing. But it was just random dudes that we've never seen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd completely forgotten that he sort of shapeshifts in front of her into all these different individuals. Very
But
strange.
they get him. They get him off her. She has this moment where she's like, "No, I'm fine, Mulder." then they hug, and then it was super weird that she has been narrating the entire episode thus far, but the closing statements was Justin Mulder. He's not
Yes,
had a
Mulder.
narrative piece in this whole episode.
Yeah,
But the end was just Mulder. Like it was just Mulder's voice. I found it so off-putting.
that was weird. That was very weird. All right,
And
that's
then that was
Irresistible.
the end.
All right, so what are your thoughts on this episode?
I was glad to see something that wasn't like, aliens or ghosts or really genuinely paranormal. This definitely had the serial killer thing going on for it. The main guy that played a creep was excellent. The only things I really didn't like is how spooked Scully is. She seems stronger than what she is in this episode, and she seems completely unable to handle anything as far as her job or investigating goes. There's this weird weak thing going on with her, and I can't wrap my mind.
Yeah. Um, I thought it was cool watching this episode just because I had no memories of it whatsoever. And so it was kind of like I'm watching a brand new episode of X Files that I'd never seen, is what it felt like. I agree with you that the guy who played Donnie Faster
Yeah.
he was great. I mean, he's just weird, but I couldn't shake that. Like, I've seen this twice before with the both Tooms episodes. It just felt like Tooms, those episodes were better than this. Not that this was a bad episode by any means, but I felt like Chris Carter didn't really explain. Like, I don't need everything explained to me. I don't necessarily need the fact that whether Donnie Faster is or is not a demon explained to me. I like the ambiguity of it, but I feel like there was a lack of connecting those images to a theme or something within this episode. Like, I didn't understand, like you said, why are we seeing this? Like, you got to give me something that I can be like, okay, this links back to Scully's trauma. Okay, but how? Like, why? I mean, he's appearing as a demon to other people. So, like, what is the theme? What is this supernatural element sort of grounded to? I didn't feel like that was done very well
Not at
in
all.
this episode at all. But yeah, this is I don't hate it. I had a good time watching it, and I think it's definitely worth watching. I don't feel as strongly about this one as I do stuff like Tombs.
Sure. And that's probably why we don't remember it. It was a
Yeah,
perfectly serviceable and forgettable episode.
yeah. So here's some fun facts. During the opening scene, the camera pans past several gravestones. The name on one of the gravestones is Raymond Soames. Ray Soames is a character in the pilot episode about whom that plot revolves. Now, I can't remember. Did the pilot episode take place in Minneapolis? That would be something to look up. I haven't. I should have done that. This episode about a serial killer inspired Chris Carter to make the TV series Millennium. Actors Nick Chinland,
Love that
who
show.
Yeah, actors Nick Chinland, who played Donnie Faster, I believe, and David Duchovny knew each other from school as children. The original title was Fascination. In the pre-credit sequence, a man sees what appears to be a skinless demonic figure in the dark, which is later revealed to be Donald Faster. It is affirmed in the season 7 episode Horizon that Faster was in fact a demon. So it looks like we will not be seeing the last of Donnie Faster.
Donnie Faster.
This episode's initial script, where Faster was supposed to be a necrophiliac, was rejected by the Fox Broadcasting Company for being unacceptable for broadcast standards. As series creator Chris Carter described it, quote, "When I handed the script in, it was really for a necrophiliac episode, and that just didn't fly. You cannot do the combination of sex and death on network television." Carter was forced to tone down the script by changing Faster from a necrophiliac to a death fetishist and diminishing Faster's sexual obsession. He considered that the sexual content was, quote, "implied and understood by audiences," unquote, and that Faster still resulted in a creepy character, particularly his creepy arrogance in using shampoo on the hair of his victims. The episode, oh yeah, I read that one. And then this episode is one of the few in the series that has no overt paranormal elements to it. Carter said of the episode's conception, quote, "My first chance to work with David Nutter in a long time, and I wanted to give him something he could sink his teeth into. It's a little bit different for us. It doesn't really have a paranormal aspect except for Scully's perceptions of her deepest fears. I felt that I had to figure out what she is most afraid of, and she is most afraid of those things that most of us are afraid of. The idea of dying at the hands of someone, creature or not, and she is helpless to do anything about it. I thought it was a very good way to explore Scully's character. The scene where Dana Scully sees Faster morph into a devil was influenced by real-life accounts as described by Carter. There are reports of people who had been under the spell of Jeffrey Dahmer who actually claim that he shapeshifted during those hours when they were held hostage, that his image actually changed. Nutter said, in many ways, Chris wanted to sell the idea that, as established in Mulder's closing dialogue in the show, not all terror comes from the paranormal. It could come from the person next door. And Nutter also said of the episode, quote, "I worked hard to make it a special show because I thought it was special. It was Jillian's post-traumatic stress episode because she had not really had the opportunity to vent her feelings about the whole Dwayne Barry situation. That was an opportunity to sit back and let all that happen. Carter particularly liked the scene where it clearly disturbed Scully hugs Mulder, claiming it was, quote, a tender moment between the two characters that had not shown that much affection for each other." Which I think is false. We've noted many times where it looks like they've shown affection for one another, so I disagree with Chris Carter on that. But those are sort of the fun facts and backstory of Irresistible. Overall, kind of like a mid-episode. Not bad.
Sure.
Not great. Just kind of, it's watchable, I would say. Certainly watchable.
Absolutely.
So thank you for listening to another episode of Exhuming the X-Files here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. Stay tuned next Friday. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this at all. Die Hand
de Verlicht.
Okay, I'm going to let you say that title on the next episode. We're going to be delving into the world of devil worshipping. So that should be fun. So stay tuned next Friday if you want to hear us talk about the devil. Until next time.